Our motto, Dylan, is more plumber, less managers. Because at the end, plumbers make money and help the company to have a better relationship with the local customers, above all in B2C activity.
Welcome to the RolyPoly, the podcast about all things roll-up. Today, we have an amazing episode. I'm talking to Andrea Allegrini from Lindbergh, an Italian public company that's done 14 HVAC acquisitions in recent years. But Lindbergh didn't start as acquirers. They started as a waste management company. Then they had the opportunity to acquire an HVAC business and realize a major opportunity. We dig into how they rescued a French company losing $2 million a year, got it to break even, then sold it anyway to chase a bigger opportunity. Andrea explains their buy little of everything strategy, mixing heating and AC companies so technicians can work year-round. And we talk about the red flags that make them walk away from deals, including why too many family members is an instant no. Let's get into it. Hello, Andrea. Welcome to the RolyPoly. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thanks, Ilan, for hosting us. Very good today, despite the meteo, which is not so good in Italy today, but we are quite good.
The weather's been terrible here for the last week, and then now we're starting to see sun, and then I'm going to Sweden tomorrow, so I'm running away from the sun.
Okay.
But Andrea, take me back to 2008. You're 20 years old, no degree, walking into Lindbergh for your first day. What did that look like?
Actually, I came across Lindbergh through an online recruitment post. So I was in a stage of my life where I basically wanted to quit studying. I attended the university in economics and part-time working with my father in food paper industry. But as you can imagine, it's not so easy to work with your relatives. So I said, okay, let's stop studying. Let's quit my current job and start to make my journey. And so I jumped in Lindbergh. I was at the time, it was July 2008. I was employee number 2. And when I joined Lindbergh, it was basically the time when Lindbergh was switching from a consultancy company in logistics from a service provider in waste management. So this gave me the opportunity to better understand all the technical part about waste management, which in Italy, as you can imagine, is a quite tough topic in terms of regulations and for a supplier for companies. And I started as a customer service guy, basically with the aim to make all the daily scheduling for pickup services in waste management. So I was personally raising the phone, I think, 200 times per day, calling the service technician of our customers all over Italy and trying to organize the activity the best way possible for our driver. So I started like this with a part-time job. After I think 4 or 5 months, I had the possibility to have a full-time job. And over the years, I really, as you can imagine, when a company is evolving and growing fast, people are used to cover many roles. So I went from customer service to sales to HSE responsibility, and then again to sales. I was the salesman for France when we had the France experience in 2021 to 2024. And now I'm the head of the waste management business unit, which is our historical business unit with roughly 30 people reporting to me. And also considering my, experience in knowing the company from many points of view, I'm also the investor relation manager. So I used to do interviews like this, attend conferences with Michele, and I honestly like a lot to speak with people, with current and potential investors. So I think it's the funnest part of my job today.
So you've worn many hats in your time. You mentioned France. I'd like us to go through that actually. Through the research that I did, I saw that you started in France from scratch and then you ended up selling.
Yep.
Could you walk me through that? What did you learn and why did you pull back at the end?
Okay. Originally, we joined France because As you know, we have many multinational companies as customers, above all in the forklift industry. So one of our biggest customer called us because the French supplier they had for logistics went basically in bankruptcy. So they asked us to find a solution there. So we identified an operational partner and we started and built the French company in a few months. And so we got automatically all the portfolio of customer. It was indeed a big company, much bigger than the Italian one for logistics, because they are the same customer we have in Italy. They are much bigger. Just to give you some number, in Italy we serve like 2,500 service technician. In France we had more than 5,000. But there the business was just a in-night distribution business. It was just basic logistics service. While in Italy, as you know, we have many added value services that are delivered through our network and through the capability to connect each night with lots of service technicians all over Italy. So we started like this. It was day one was the first day of lockdown during Corona. So as you can imagine, it was a mess. So volumes dropped automatically after this period. And we also had in heritage, at first we started as a minority shareholder of the French company. So we didn't have the control of the board. We had a French management there. And after 1 year, we took over the majority and the control of the board because we saw a very terrible situation in terms of financials. Just to give you an overview, the company was losing a couple of million per year on a turnover of 9. So we felt the commitment to fix the situation also for our customers. So we moved all the strategic functions to Italy. Imagine telling a French guy to talk with an Italian one starting from the following day. So it was a very tough period. But after 1 year, we reached the break even, working both on the operations, so reducing the number of suppliers, working on contract with suppliers, fixing the contracts and the prices with customer. So we reached the break-even point in, I think it was August, September 2021. But the main issue there was the presence of a very aggressive competitor. Also because there, as I already mentioned, we just had the logistics and the delivery services. So no added value service meant to be as a sort of a barrier for us. And so after we realized that there was the possibility to lose one customer, the biggest customer, because in our traditional business, the customer concentration is quite important. Imagine in Italy, 90% of our logistics turnover is made by 9 customers. So losing one would have mean again spending money to cover losses and not to use that money to invest in other important initiatives like the HVAC one that in the meantime was started to be carried out in Italy. And so with I would say a sort of pragmatic approach, our CEO wrote a shareholder letter talking about capital, and not just capital, but also energy allocation. We decided in late 2024 to sell the company, so all the customers, portfolio, and all the operations to our main competitor there, which is a huge industrial group, with the final aim to focus our investment capability, energy, and capital in Italy, and above all in the HVAC opportunity.
Okay, interesting. I definitely want to go into the HVAC opportunity because I know that's where we're talking about roll-ups. But I just want to recap what I understood. This company was hemorrhaging a lot of money. You guys came in as minority shareholders. You fixed a lot of the problems. What experience did you have, and why couldn't they fix those problems, and what did you bring to be able to turn that problem around?
The main message is probably that what has worked so far in a country maybe won't work in another one. You need to be there. So moving all the strategic functions to Italy was necessary, but it was not good because of the proximity. I mean, you have to talk, you have to be there with your people, with your customers. And above all, main lesson was if you have a better opportunity, don't be, I don't know if it's the proper term, jealous about what you've built in the years. So if selling is a better opportunity because you have a better way to spend your energy and money, jump into the new opportunity. And the past is past.
Yeah, I love that. So you're talking about opportunity loss by spending too much attention in one place. You're losing potential opportunities somewhere else. And then, so that's when you started focusing on Smith, right? This is a subsidiary of Lindbergh for HVAC or AC installation and repair. Could you tell me a little bit about Smith and how it's been going so far?
Okay, actually, Smith at first was the first company we bought. It was the company of a friend of our CEO. Basically, we bought it to better, it was a sort of test with the final aim to better understand how the HVAC market works in Italy, the relationship with the OEM and brands, the relationship with final customer, how those company works. So we understood how the Italian economical tissue of HVAC company works. There are companies mainly focused on installation, company focused on maintenance, companies focused on B2B or B2C. So it's a very fragmented business in Italy with roughly 10, 12,000 capital companies and an average market share of 12 billion. So it's a very interesting market for doing roll-up activity. And so we started like this as a test, and we realized quickly the real potential of trying to become the first industrial player with, I would say, a national coverage of Italy. And after a couple of years, 2 years and a half, we reached the 14 acquisition. And now HVAC has already become the biggest business unit of the group, and of course the main driver of our growth.
Wow. So 14 acquisitions. What's changed since your first acquisition or maybe your second one, because the first one was a friend, to now in the way that you do deals and how you work?
Yes. So basically, we understood a few things from from the acquisition made over the last couple of years. First of all, I mean, it's better to focus on healthy companies. I mean, we had a very tough experience in France fixing a company. So the main aim today for our HVAC roll-up initiative is buy healthy companies, buy companies with a very strong historical heritage and presence on the territory. Buy little of everything, which is something we like to do because it's also a way to reduce the risk. Because if you buy, you are not too much exposed to external factors, to innovation challenges about technical skills and innovations. You are not too exposed to the external factors like fiscal bonuses, for example, which can impact the economic performances of those companies. Now we have clear in our mind what we have to check before buying a company in terms of dimension, in terms of people inside, in terms of skills, in terms of balance sheet and due diligence. So now, I mean, if to date we kept an opportunistic approach, so basically it's the seller calling us today. In the next future, we need to become more and more proactive to be able to find what we need where we need.
Okay. You mentioned buy little of everything. Could you tell me more about that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned before, Dylan, each in Italy, those companies are really focused on a specific activity. So for example, a company doing installation usually is not making maintenance. This is mainly due to the OEM that gives the local license to do activity. Because in the past, those brands prefer to split the activity to better control those local companies. For example, in Rome, we bought two companies from the same seller. One company was doing just installation, and the other one was just doing maintenance activity. Maintenance is the most recurring and predictable business ever, which we honestly like, while installation can be fluctuating and can be related and depending on external factors, like for example fiscal bonuses by the government, which in the past year impacted a lot the installation of new machines for energy efficiency, reduction of pollution, and so on. While on the other hand, maintenance is recurring and predictable. Traditionally, companies doing AC systems are different than companies doing heating systems. So if you have a little of everything in this sense, it helps us on one hand to reduce the risk, because you are not relying too much on a specific activity, on a specific territory. And on the other hand, above all, under the operational point of view and the optimization point of view, if you have companies on the same territory with complementary high season period, you can reach a better organization of work and not a turnover fluctuating over the years. Because if you take, for example, an heating company, they basically cover cost from January to September, and they make margins in the last quarter of the year. While if you take an AC, a company working in AC systems, the peak is during the summer period. So if you buy two of them, and if you have two of them on the same territory, you can also reach a better organization of service technician work, because they can help each other. And that's one of
you
the
share
first.
the workforce.
Yeah, it is. It's really powerful, because technician is already paid. Of course, they have to train. We've built an internal academy to teach them to work on different brands, on different machines. But at the end, it's just incremental turnover with little incremental operational cost, like the hotel, if the technician needs to travel and go in another region, the monthly bonuses at the end of the year for the technician. But at the end, it's just incremental turnover.
Okay, so yeah, because I think a lot of roll-ups focus on we need to buy the same type of business and either expand on a geographical region or area, and that's kind of the focus. But what you're saying is diversify the type of HVAC installers or repair people, heating or ventilation, and then you can share the workforce between them. And I'm sure there's also some cross-selling opportunities.
Yeah.
You know.
Also, sorry, also because, for example, the last company we bought is the biggest deal closed. It's Alpi Clima in the Piedmont region. They also do, for example, some water treatment. They have a water treatment solution. So in this case, we can take this capability, and we can extend them to the other companies of the group, and being able to sell the same services also to in other regions, in other territories. So it's also good for us, and we need to do this to get all the local best practices. Think, for example, about the possibility to train the technician to sell while doing maintenance activity on the territory. So we have companies very good in doing this. We have very good companies in optimization of the activity of the technician, in the capability of selling through the back office people as well, while scheduling appointment. So we just need to take these local best practices, raise them at the group level, and implement them on all the companies of the group. And we believe that this will be a very important source of additional marginality at the end.
I guess the positives are quite obvious from what you're describing, but the cons might be that you're then managing quite different businesses that have different operations, and then maybe it's harder to integrate those businesses together. If someone is thinking of doing a roll-up or has started doing a roll-up, do you think at first they should prioritize buying very similar businesses from each other, or is it a good idea from the beginning to diversify to reduce risk?
Now, of course, it's something that needs time to be implemented. As I mentioned before, we buy healthy companies with stable turnover, stable margins. So we don't need and we don't want to turn them upside down and completely change their local heritage, their historical background. We need to respect all these things and just help those companies to reduce costs and add new possibility, new business. But of course, it's a long-term journey. Just think about, for example, we keep the local and historical name of the companies instead of trying to build, in this stage, the first national brand. Of course, this could be a long-term plan to be the first recognized brand at the national level. But now it's not the time to do this because we need to rely on local people, local business, respect the proximity with the local customers. So we just need to help this company to work better and to manage better stocks, for example, inventories, scheduling of technician, try to implement new way to organize the workforce, like AI, for example. So there is already a lot of things in our...
Okay, I see. What level of integration do you have? Is it on a case-by-case basis? How much do you integrate these companies with each other?
Not that much. One of the first things we've done is, for example, to give a visibility of each inventory, which is important because instead of buying the spare parts from an external supplier, at first you need to check if another company of the group has that specific spare parts. And in the case you buy it from the company of Smith, we give them the visibility of the workforce to be able to share the workforce and share the technicians' works. But at the end, HVAC is a very local business. So our aim is to apply our industrial plan in terms of implementing all the logistics services that we offer to other MRO companies. And by that, our aim is to increase the productivity of the technician, to help them in doing 6, 7 interventions per day instead of 5, to have an inventory under control by having a unique central warehouse, to centralize all the purchase function to get and have a better pricing power with the suppliers and brands. So it's not changing the habits and the services offered, but it's just staying in the back and trying again to help those companies in focusing on what's important. So the keeping and retaining technician and keeping and retaining customers.
Okay, I see. So on a per company level, you give them visibility of other companies' workforce and inventory.
Yeah.
You don't tell them how to change the way they work. You don't tell them how they should do the operations. You leave that to them.
Yeah.
I imagine you probably create a space where there can be some knowledge sharing between the companies and how to solve certain problems.
Yeah. We make recurrent meetings with all the local managers. And we have a couple of people in the structure that used to travel a lot to go there, talk with the local manager, fix issues if we identify issues, to check if the prices applied are aligned with our price list. So we have people. Of course, we need to, and we want to keep a lean central structure. We don't need hundreds of managers. Our motto, Dylan, is more plumber, less managers. Because at the end, plumbers make money and help the company to have a better relationship with the local customers, above all in B2C activity. So,
Okay.
yeah.
But then on a group level or a management level, what type of reporting do you expect? Do you do consolidated group level reporting? Is that something that maybe is done every month, or what I'm trying to ask is, of course, you need to collect this data to make decisions. How do you think about that?
The first thing we do when we buy a company is to implement is a shelf product, because we don't need, I think, today a custom-made system. But it's good because it helps us to have a real-time visibility of inventory and of the activity of all the service technicians of the group. So average turnover per day, average number of interventions per day. And of course, this system is linked with our systems to be able to make a weekly overview of all the data. A tough work when we buy a company is to use, for example, homogeneous references when buying, when producing invoices, to better help us in having a homogeneous set of data to make our analysis. But yes, it's the first thing we do, and this is not under discussion. We oblige this company to implement the ERP because it's, I mean, data and visibility is, we need them, and so we have to ask those people to change the ERP. In some case, we already find inside the ERP we use, so in that case, it's simple. It's just a matter of connecting through some API their system with ours. In some others, we completely need to change it.
Okay, so you don't change operations, but ERP is something that is not flexible in terms of you need to, like, not negotiable is the word I was looking for. They must change over to your ERP so you get good reporting, because at the end of the day, how are you going to make decisions without having consolidated data? So that makes sense. I want to zoom out, and you mentioned before how you've been very opportunistic around deals. So my question is, how have you been making deals so far, and why do you want to be more proactive about it?
Okay. To date, we always kept an opportunistic approach, meaning that it's the seller calling us. As I mentioned before, the market is very fragmented. We have lots of sellers at the end of their professional life willing to sell, not finding anyone to lead the company, facing the problem of the general the generational succession. So it's the best opportunity for us in this sense, because it allows us not to have too many prospects in the pipeline. I think that now we have from 5 to 10 opportunities, so we don't need to have hundreds. I mean, over the past few months, I talked with lots of serial acquirers, above all from the Nordics, in other industries, and they used to keep 90, 100 prospects, keeping them for a couple of years, 3 years. For us, it's different, but at the end, we close most of them. I think that in a couple of years, just one was not signed the day before the deal, because at the end, the seller changed his mind about selling the company. He decided to leave the company to his son. So we have a good success ratio, and it's basically word of mouth. So probably they read our press release. They talk with when we talk about HVAC in Italy, it's mainly company having licenses from brand. And every now and then, the brand themselves organize local meetings with all the dealers. And during this meeting, they talk. And so one seller is saying to the other, I sold to Lindbergh. They want to build the first national brand in HVAC. If you are willing to sell, give them a call. So it's basically most of the opportunity came from this. Now, as I mentioned, we started to be a little more proactive, because we really want to better exploit all the small operational synergies on the territory, and to develop a sort of hub and spoke strategy. So could be that, for example, when we want to enter a specific region or a new region, we need to find a company with an initial turnover of 3, 4, 8 millions. But then we need to act in an active way to integrate and find all the local companies all around that can be integrated with low effort in the existing local structure.
I think a lot of people listening might be quite jealous that you don't have to do outreach and they've been coming to you.
Yeah, but also due diligence is quite simple, because we talk about service companies. So they just basically have labor costs as per part costs. So we don't need either external consultant to make all the analysis on balance sheets. It's really simple, and the M&A team is composed of 2 people and a half. So it's quite, again, we would prefer to stay lean also in this case.
Okay. The management, you said that you let each business run itself through the management. How do you find that talent? Do you keep the person that is selling on board for a year or two and then promote someone internally? How have you handled the talent acquisition?
Okay, one of the first thing and one of the most important as well thing we check with the seller is a guy already in the company willing to take over the responsibility of managing technician and managing the company. And this is important because it's also a way to grant the continuity and not to change the background and the historical heritage of those companies. So before signing the deal, we want the seller to identify a guy inside the company, becoming our local manager. And yes, we also ask the seller to stay at least 1 year because we don't want to rush and we don't need to rush. So if the seller is staying a couple of years, we can manage a better transition, a smooth transition. So not having the need to rush is also important, not because we want to make more and more acquisitions over the year. So it's very important to not to need again, for example, if you buy a company which is not healthy under a financial or economical point of view, you need to take all your team, all your strength and energy to fix this kind of situation and to fix the problem. We don't want to do this. We just want to jump smoothly into this company, and in this sense, the seller can help us. In some case, we can also keep the seller as an external consultant after he leaves. I mean, again, it's an opportunistic approach. So each situation, each deal is different.
I see. Something that would be a red flag is, do they not have anyone else that could take the management role?
This can bring
What are there?
to not closing the deal.
Yeah. Is there any other red flags that makes you walk away from a deal?
Yes, the presence of too many family members in the company, which is specific for smaller companies between 500,000 and 1 million turnover. We had some experience there, and we needed to completely change all the people inside the company. The not having an homogeneous turnover and economical performances over the years. So if we buy a company that in the past 10 years has always done margins at the same turnover, it means it's an healthy company. We check above all the loyalty of the people inside the company. So we are not buying a company with an average loyalty of technician, which is not good for us. We closed the deal in Northern Milan area in Monza. The average seniority of technician was 13 years. So if you buy this company, you are safe because technician is not leaving. And this is important because there is a scarcity of service technician. I think also in not just in Italy, I think at worldwide level, and not just in HVAC, but in all the technical activities.
Yeah, my auntie actually works as a HVAC foreman at a shop in the south of Portugal. And I was talking to her about this, and she said that the technical shortage is a huge problem. So I assume this is why you created the academy. But what also happens is, what she's seen is that because there's such a big need, that as soon as you train these people up, they can leave and just set up their own sort of freelance shop.
Yeah.
And so how are you handling sort of employee retention? Is it good payment structures, or how are you keeping them inside the company?
You hit the button. So it's basically proposing them a very attractive way to compensate them if they help us in implementing our industrial plan. So if a technician is willing to stay away 2-3 days per month to go to the closest company and help another company of the group, he has a monthly bonus at the end of the month. If the technician is able to do some upsell while talking with the customer on site, he has a variable fee based on what he's able to sell. I don't know, sanitizing service or new supplies for AC systems. So basically, we made last year the first national HVAC meeting, and what we said is we want our technician to gain much more than the average. And we already have some case internally where they are able to get 30-40% higher wage than than the standard in Italy, which is not so high. So this is how we want to prevent them not to leave, because I think that they feel already that they are part of something bigger, so they enjoy staying with us. But mainly we want to prevent them from running their own business, which is the other reason why they can.
I see. Yeah. So obviously, there's two bad things that happen if they leave. You have one less employee and you have one more competitor, which
Yes,
isn't fun.
and also because it's strange, but if you hire an engineer, above all, I'm talking mainly about maintenance, without having any additional sales activity, you automatically have an incremental turnover of around 100K at the end of the year. It's mathematics. If you are one engineer, you have 100K on the balance sheet at the end of the year.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Have you considered, because you obviously went cross borders for the France deals, are you considering expanding to do this Smith HVAC roll up outside of Italy, or are you just going to be focusing in Italy for now?
No, we want to stay focused in Italy. There is so much to do, so many opportunities. Market share is huge. We are the first, so we want to profit about this. And no. France experience was enough.
And are you seeing much competition? Because I know that roll-ups are obviously huge in the US. So there's lots of competition if you want to do an HVAC roll-up there. It's starting to happen in the Nordics and the UK. How about Italy? What does the landscape look like?
As far as I know, we are the only one today carrying on in with an industrial plan this kind of activity, so doing roll up. In the past, we had a French player that actually decided to sell at the end because they relied too much on the fiscal bonuses. So after those bonuses were stopped by the government, their turnover decreased from 1/3 in a single year. So they decided to give away to sell back the company to the old sellers. So as far as I know today, we are all alone. I mean, there is the space for a couple of players, and even in case of PE doing this kind of activity, we are not afraid because we have different targets. I think that a PE doing roll-up is mainly focusing on big companies, more focused probably on the energy transition, while we integrate companies, companies that are really part of the economical tissue of Italy. So companies from 1 million to 3 million. We are not even in case of another company, another player doing roll-up, probably multiples at the end could be affected a little, but it's not something we are afraid of.
Lindbergh is a public company.
Yeah.
Do you see that as an advantage, or are there any disadvantages?
No, it's a great advantage because it gives us the visibility, above all in markets where roll-ups is not something that already happened, and we have investors that told us that what we are trying to do in Italy has already worked in other countries, in the Nordics, in the US. We have some interesting roll-up in the US running at incredible multiples. So in this case, being public, it's also good because we have the visibility of. On the one hand, we have visibility, and on the other, we have the possibility to speak with the long-term investors, giving us also the possibility to understand what has worked in other cases, what has not worked. So we really like being public and sharing this really long-term journey with the investor we have on board.
Yeah, and the multiple arbitrage must be very nice when you're going from acquiring a small private company to then adding that to your valuation.
Yeah,
it must be. To me, it makes a lot of sense, this roll-up strategy, but I think a lot of listeners would agree.
In average, we buy, I think, between 4 and 4.5 times EBITDA. Our current evaluation today is much higher. Yes, it's. It's just a financial opportunity, but of course we don't leave this as a financial activity, but we want to stick to our industrial plan and really try to build something new, something different in this industry, which has not changed over the last decades. So we think that we can, if we are good in applying what we've learned from our customers in other industries, we can really build something unique. And not just in Italy, like we did for logistics, because we are an unicum today. You cannot find any logistics company worldwide using logistics to sell other services for MRO companies. And we want to apply the same mentality, the same approach to HVAC as well.
Yeah, well, I think it sounds like you're in a great position to do so. Lindbergh is positioned to be that leader in Italy, especially seeing as there's no competition. It feels like you have a pretty straight lane, but I'm sure there's a lot of challenges coming with that as well. One thing you mentioned before was AI. How is AI impacting Lindbergh right now? Is it a big focus internally?
We're starting to work in this sense, because HVAC, above all, when you have hundreds of thousands of customers in your database, I think we have roughly little less than 500,000 customers, which is a lot. You spend a lot of time doing a non-added value activity. Think about filling the agenda of the technician, making the scheduling of the appointment, above all in B2C. So in this case, if we are able to let the people doing what is worth, so talking with customers, trying to sell, be as a support for salespeople on the territory, it's slightly better than having people doing 2,000 calls per year, 3,000 calls per year, which can honestly, I think, being done by an AI agent or something like this.
Have you implemented these AI solutions, or is it just in R&D at the moment?
It's R&D.
R&D,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunities here, and AI. Everyone talks about it every day, all the time on LinkedIn, that we're missing these big opportunities to implement. But I think the first step is being good at centralizing all of the data that you have.
Yeah.
And then also, I heard this podcast the other day, and someone was talking about how a lot of organizations, especially enterprise organizations, are doing AI the wrong way around. They're starting at the top, trying to implement these huge AI initiatives that cost a lot of time and money, and the results come out much poorer than expected. But instead, a good strategy is to look at what tiny solutions you can improve. So the scheduling, for example, sounds like a good one, or route optimization of how to do the schedules, and then just fix one small problem at a time. To me is where I think AI, how AI should be thought about, and where it's going to be adding the most.
It is also because huge investments drain cash from the bank at the end of the year. So we are really, in general, our strategy should be more and more oriented not in maximizing turnover, but in maximizing the cash at the end of the year, by working on inventories, by working on net working capital management. And this is what also we ask to the local manager, so to be focused in this sense. Because at the end, if those companies are able to generate cash, also thanks to the deal structure, we can have those companies paying the deal itself, which is a huge, fantastic flywheel to be able to invest more and more in our roll-up strategy.
Yeah, no, that's impressive. If you're able to do it without having a huge amount of debt each time, yeah, it makes sense to me. What's one thing you wish you'd known before you started acquiring? One lesson that you've learned that really, really burned?
Actually, when we talk about, when we spend lunch together with the management, with the CEO, with the CEO of Smith, we used to say that we still have not found a negative part of this journey. The most important part is buying a good company. So if you buy a good company, you have already done 90% of what you have to do. And so, so it just it's also a matter of understanding what's better to buy. We prefer, for example, to buy three companies doing just some figures as an example. Three companies doing 500K EBITDA per year instead of one doing 1.5 million. Because again, it's a matter of reducing the risk. And so it's just, again, we just need to buy good companies, wealthy companies, companies over on the territory over the last 30 years with good people inside, with good loyalty of technician. And if we do this, really, it's really hard to find some potential problems affecting the results of our strategy.
Yeah. That makes sense then. So easy. All you have to do is buy good companies and the rest falls into place. But if you buy bad companies, it goes downhill.
You have to spend your energy to fix them, and we don't want to do this. I mean, it
no,
could
to
happen
me, it
and it
makes
can
complete
happen.
sense. And I guess this is a big advantage that you guys have with not having so much competition and having deals come to you instead of you having to pick from the scraps of what's left. This is why I think there's a huge opportunity in Europe as a whole, right? Compared to the US, where it's so competitive there. It really is a buyer's market, I believe, in Europe, especially if you're in these very fractionalized industries like HVAC in Italy.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah,
sense.
but Italy is plenty of opportunity in this sense because we have this is our historical heritage. The economics of Italy is based on small family-owned businesses. And again, the comparison in our logistics business for France is to be understood in this sense. Because if we have a company with 300 people here, abroad in Germany, in France, it's a company of 2,000 people. Because in Italy, also multinational brands didn't always wanted to explore the possibility to implement direct networks. It's starting to happen in some industry, like the forklift industry. We know well because we have most of our customers there, where multinational companies are buying local dealers to reach a better capillarity, and above all to control all the maintenance activity, which is for them a source of the most important source of business instead of selling new machines. And so HVAC in this sense is just one of many other industry in Italy that has always been fragmented that with the lack of national players.
Who is someone in the roll-up space that's doing interesting work that you find interesting? Someone that maybe you'd like to hear on a podcast like this one?
It will be interesting for me to talk with some players that already done HVAC in the US, for example. I think there are a couple of really interesting company there like Watsco or Home Systems, which are really powerful, or even to try if there is someone that has done this in Europe in really boring businesses. Yes, but what it would be interesting to hear the opinion from an American player or someone doing HVAC all over the world.
Yeah, perfect. We have an American player booked in a future
Wow.
episode, so I will let you know when that one's out.
Great.
But Andrea, thank you so much for being, one of the first guests on the RolyPoly. I hope that you enjoyed the episode. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Dylan, and hi to all the RolyPoly friends. Bye.